Previously on AgentPalmer.com, I had a blast building the Lego Lunar lander. Agent Carter presented her A to Z movie list, and did you stay until the end of the last episode? My Audible presentation has definitely improved. This is the Palmer Files, episode 25, with my friend Jason Zapata. This is the first of 4 episodes discussing friendship by examining one up close. Are you ready? Let's do the show. Hello and welcome to the Palmer Files. I'm your host, Jason Stershic, also known as Agent Palmer, and on this 25th episode is the first of 4 episodes about friendship, starting with a friend from high school. Friendship required space and tolerance. Love required no less. That quote comes from the Voyage of the Juril Shannara trilogy, which I read because of my friend and the guest of honor on this episode, Jason Zapata. And what's more, I do love him, and that love may also be due to space and tolerance. You can be the judge over the course of this episode. What you are about to hear is simple and yet complex. This episode, and the others like it, all contained 4 main questions. Why are we friends? How did we meet? How did we become friends? Why are we still friends? Through the answers to those questions, the discussions and the stories that ensue, Zapata and I will dive deep into our shared past and the meaning of, and perhaps the reason for, our friendship. Before we get to it, remember that if you want to discuss this episode as you listen or after, you can tweet me at Agent Palmer, the show at The Palmer Files, or send email to thepalmerfiles@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com. So without further ado, let's get into it. Jason, why are we friends?
Oh, there's serious questions with this. I was just here for the free pizza. But why are we friends? That's, I would say, shared history, shared interests, patience with each other's idiosyncrasies, which there are many between the two of us. Oh, definitely. What do you think?
Why are we you know what? This is the first of these, and I'm trying not to answer this question because I don't want to say the same thing. That's the one thing. It's the beauty of this whole thing, right? Is that I get to ask this question to you, and then I get to ask it to 3 other people, and their answers are what I'll learn from. But if I say it, like, it could be the same thing as everybody else. Like, I know what everybody has in common, and I come from a place where I'm the hub. You guys are all the spokes, right? So it's hard for me to answer, but I cannot disagree with anything you just said.
Yeah.
It's, that's pretty on the mark.
I feel so.
How did we meet?
I believe, and this is, again, the old, going back that far,
yeah.
That's a ways, better part of not more than 2 decades.
It's over 2 decades.
Yeah.
It's over 2 decades.
So, yeah, bit of time there. But if I recall, there was a mutual group of friends that we had I think they knew you longer than they knew me. So I met them, and through them, I believe I met you. If I'm recalling things
what's
correctly.
What's funny is I remember it's possible we were on the periphery of each other.
Yeah.
But for me, I absolutely remember it was, I don't know if it was like maybe freshman year. So I had made it to high school at some point. So I was probably either a freshman, it had to be a freshman year.
Yeah.
And I was in a sport that got canceled for some reason. So I needed a ride home. And our mutual friend, Judy, was like, well, he'll give you a ride. And I was like, I at this point, it's like we're in periphery. Like,
yeah.
I'd heard of you, but I didn't know you. And I just remember, because I don't know, you gave her a ride first. She was actually out of the way. I was actually more on your way than anyone else, given that scenario.
Yeah.
And then like you dropped her off, and it was just the two of us in the car, and it's like, hi.
Yeah, start talking.
And then you dropped me off, and that was the beginning of a beautiful, like, it's just so funny because like I don't think it was like obviously I couldn't drive at the time, but I don't think it was like, oh well, I'll just get a ride with Zapata. Like, it wasn't even that at that point.
No,
it was
no,
just
not
a
at all.
one-off. And then that's where everything goes blur. Like, I remember that, but then to like hanging out all the time, there's a blur in between. I am missing whatever that piece is, right? Like, I remember meeting you, then we hung out all the time. And I know that wasn't like the next day or even the next week or the next month, but whatever happened in the middle is beyond me. I have no idea.
I think if I had to guess, I think it was, again, mutual friends. I think there was probably a party or two we probably hung out with at some point, and we started talking, and you had a love of, metal music and 80s music in particular. I enjoyed that too, and then it kind of spooled off into high fantasy, and like, oh, I like Tolkien. Oh, I like Tolkien too, and it just went from there. We the shared interest in nerddom and just being a bit of an outsider too, in our own different ways. I think also played a part in that.
Yeah, we come from very different forms of outsiderness. You were literally the classic, like, well, he doesn't really belong to any group, but you also didn't want to be a part of a group either. Like, it wasn't, you weren't at a loss because you weren't on a team. Whereas I was basically on the outside of every group. Like, I was in a lot of groups, but I never felt in any of them. Like, I ran track and cross country. I was in theater. I was in the band, but I was in all these things and without actually being in it. And, we were, like, I guess because in the context of this being high school, like, you don't have to be in band and you don't have to join a club or a sport. But once you do, you're there, same as English class. Like, you just have to be there. You can't just skip a practice or whatever. And I feel like you were one of those first people in my life where it was like, no, I choose to hang out with that dude. Like, I'm choosing to hang out with him. Like, yeah, I still have all my running friends and my band friends and this, that, and the other. But like, no, we go hang out. And what's funny about the whole thing is, like, we lived like a mile and a half apart. Like, like, the houses were not that far. And I just know that
Honesdale was a small town.
It was a small town, but but it was spread out too. So it's not to say that you couldn't have been out in the country, but like, I don't know how it happened, but it didn't happen. It didn't take very long because at a certain point you started picking me up and we would go to school together.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was it. Like, I mean, and if it was a sport, like, I wouldn't come home with you, but like, we would go together. And I remember Friday mornings getting there early, and then we'd go to one of the diners and eat.
I think there was a bagel store, if I recall.
Well, there was the bagel shop. Yeah. There was also that diner across the street from it where we would go because the teachers were there on Fridays too. Because I remember sitting at a table with you, eating like just a normal diner breakfast, and like the teachers getting up to leave and being like, "See you in class," and just being like, "If we show up," like, it was just,
a little bit of moxie there on our part. Yeah. Oh, we'll be there. Yeah.
But it was just like, after I met you, you're there. You're in almost everything there, right? It's just, and we overlapped in different ways, but it still worked. And I just,
and then our own kind of circle started overlapping of friends, and that was another thing because I had my own kind of motley crew that I was a part of, and again, a lot of shared interest in movies and in music, and that's I think especially in that setting with not a lot of things to do in a small town, having that type of shared interest where it's easy and very accessible. You just pop in an old, back then, what was it? There was it wasn't DVDs.
Yeah, we had DVDs. I mean, we had
not
cassettes.
Back then.
It was mainly VHS. But...
Yeah, at that point, I mean, let's date ourselves here, man. Like there was the VHS.
Well, you walk around Blockbuster for like an hour on Friday night. Hey, do you want to watch this? No, we saw it last week. Like,
exactly, and that was the whole thing. You went to your video store, you hung out. I mean, it was this whole kind of way of meeting up and hanging out and sharing stories, and that's what we did.
So, is it a blur for you as well as to how we became friends? Like we've established how we met, and then we just started hanging out. Like I think that blur is whatever the growing pains were of becoming friends, right? Like whatever that blur that I cannot remember for the life of me is, like whatever happened in that set the seeds for everything. Because
well, it's that joke we were laughing about, I think almost a couple weeks ago. It's the one friend you were mentioning. I was like, I have no idea who you're talking about. And then, I started joking with you. It's like, I said that, but a couple hours later, the picture of her face started rendering in my mind. And I was like, I know exactly who he's talking about now.
Yeah.
And it was so freaky because I'm like, wow, that's weird how that works.
And it's funny too, because like we haven't lived the same life, right? Like, as a great example, you and I, high school, but you were a year ahead of me. I skipped out, halfway through your senior year, my junior year. I went overseas, and, you're the only friend, not family. You're the only friend who's known me before and after that trip. Like,
indeed.
The only one. So you are the only person that I could sit here and be like, did I change? Because you're the only one who still remains that knew me before and after.
Yeah.
And I did call you, and that's when I remember falling in love with your family. Because I mean, the time difference was like 12 or 13 hours or something like that. And I would call at weird hours, like before you would go to school.
Yeah.
Or whatever, and like your mom was so nice, and
well, I think it's funny. Our parents have adopted each other, like it's
that didn't take long either.
No.
Like it was just like, okay, that's just how it is. And so I would call and just because you were the one person I stayed in touch with while I was over there. It might have been a few others, but outside of family, it was you. And then I will never forget. I had come back and it's just one of those things I will never forget, because I was like, hey, let's go. Maybe we should hang out with Dan. And you're like, he's busy. And I was like, well, maybe we should hang out with Sean. And you're like, he's busy. I'm like, where are they? And you're like, graduation. And I was like, shouldn't you be at graduation?
Yeah.
Because we were just in your car driving around.
Yeah. I had decided it was not in my best interest to attend. And again, it's frustrating because there were really good teachers there, and I think if I could go back, I don't think I would have gone, but at the same time, I think I should have made more of an effort to just go out of my way to thank them before kind of closing that particular troubled book.
Well, it's funny because a year later, when I was eligible for my high school diploma, I didn't go either. But I had different reasons. I was like, wait, look, we went to a public school. I want to establish that. But they were like, you have to shave your beard. And I was like, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. And I told you that, and you laughed. You just lost it. Like, they want you to do what?
What people need to understand too about this particular small town is you have to go back in time, because, and I don't mean this completely disparagingly, but just there was a very almost like 50s, 60s mentality that was still very prevalent in that geographical area. And, I don't think that I'm not gonna say it was like nightmarish for me, but it was definitely a very challenging, time.
Well,
just due to the
look at what we had to do, right?
Yeah.
Even like once the high school years were behind us and we were still there and around, we drove the 90 minutes to Scranton to do anything.
Oh yeah.
That's where the concerts were. We drove at that time 45 or 50 minutes to somewhere else to go just to go bowling. We didn't have a bowling alley at that time in that town. And it's just kind of like
there was like one in Pawpack, I want to say, or Waymart. There was some
one
that's just outside.
One in right outside of Carbondale, right off of. Because look, we also were that generation where the bypass, as it is now known, didn't exist for us. So it wasn't just like a quick shot to wherever we wanted to go.
It wasn't.
But one of those bowling trips is when I first saw you in anguish, because we got back at like normal time, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whatever it was. And you're like, I think I left my journal.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And it's just like, we'll go back tomorrow. Like they're closed. Like it's, whatever. And we never
retrieved it.
Retrieved it.
It's gone. There's probably some pretty decent material in there. I kind of regret that I was never able to get that.
I mean, it's funny because you and I both have that creative.
Oh yeah,
and we did early on share what I can only remember as being bad. I don't think a lot of it, at that time, was very good.
No, and that's what makes it. But that's the good thing, though, because it's angsty and it's angry and it's it's unvarnished and you grow from that. Like you. What happens is, for a lot of creative people, I think, is that passion remains, but when you wear the clothes of an older man, you're able to refine that message or that statement that you're trying to make, whatever piece of art you're working with. And I miss those days. I miss the angry young man, I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, so I am responsible for bringing you to college with me because at the time, so I just want to state this now, depending on where we go with this. There have been times in our friendship when you have tried to run away. Not from me in particular, but from everyone. And one of those times...
I have very strong hermit inclinations.
Very, very strong hermit inclinations. One of those times you went... So I went to Keystone and you were still back at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then my sophomore year, you went to Bloomsburg.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pulling teeth to get a hold of you. And I understand you were busy, but no one, Zapata's fallen off the face of the earth. I talked to your parents that year more than I talked to you.
Yeah, due to the financial situation, I think at that time I was working close to full time. I was working for a tyrannical pizza joint owner, and I was working like these crazy hours. Like I think if I had to think back, I think it was like 5 to 12 or something really outlandish. So between going to school full time and 32 hours a week, it was brutal.
No, that's fair. But we did hang out during holidays and that kind of
stuff. Oh yeah,
so
and we would have the WW. I think at the time it was still F parties where you guys would get a pay-per-view and I would come down and we'd watch it in the one rec room. I forget what it was called.
Yep. We'd invite you up on campus and just
and again, some mutual friends were still there too.
Yep.
Dan was there. Sean was there. So you still had some of that Honesdale crowd. You know?
So we that happens, and then when you transferred back to the University of Scranton, and you're closer, which you're in the big city that actually exists for us at Keystone. Like, I mean, so
quote unquote big city.
We would just be like, "Come on up." Like and you were up like probably at least 1 weekend
most
a
weekends,
month, just hanging out. If we weren't down. And then, it's just one of those things like,
and again, the mixing of the circles. I think when you spoke about earlier about hubs and spokes,
yeah,
we had a lot of intermingling spokes going on.
that's true.
Because,
we really did.
Yeah.
So, at that point, we fell into a fairly decent rhythm. But it was weird because, we go back to Honesdale for the summer, and it's just kind of like, whatever it is, your college kid's back from whatever. It's just kind of like, whatever. And I spent the last 2 summers on campus, and you would come up occasionally. And all I remember is I graduated and came down here. I'm an hour away, and I used to, in the beginning, come up every weekend. I was just always coming up, and then the anxiety hit. The travel was a little bit less. Everybody else, talk about the circle, like everybody else started to disperse, and it was just kind of you and me at a certain point. Like everybody else was gone, had moved on to other things, or Dan goes overseas, Sean's in the military, like whatever.
Kyle moved to Philly.
Kyle moved to Philly. Like everybody's gone, and the other circles are kind of dispersed as well.
Yeah.
And those were all, joint circles. So it's just kind of like, we just kind of stayed in touch.
Yeah.
And then you completely ghosted me for like 6 months. 6 months, not a hey, nor hi, nor nothing. 6 months of absolutely just, I don't know where, like I would talk to other people and be like, you heard from Zapata? Nope.
Yes. After a very disappointing short stint with a nonprofit company in Philadelphia, things went bad. The job wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I had to quit it. And that's right when the 2008 economic spiral happened. And I could not find a job, and I lost everything. I was in the red. I had to come back home, a tail between my legs. I couldn't. I was looking up and seeing the soles of my feet. That's how down I was.
Now, at a certain point in this, when you do move back home, the phone calls start to trickle in a little bit. Now, at this point in 2008, someone is still not wanting a cell phone. I just want everyone to know that you've had I've had 1 cell phone number in the entire time we've known each other. You've had 7.
Yeah, I did not take to the new technology well. I do value it, and I say that very begrudgingly. I do see the perils of it as well. But no, I had the old burner phones. You used to laugh at me about my old track phones. I loved it. I had an old flip phone I kept forever. It was an old Motorola flip phone. And I used that for forever. Then I started dating a bit more, and it was just like, okay, my minutes keep running out. I got to get a goddamn phone. So that finally kind of forced my hand. I started. I made the jump to a regular mobile phone. But
at a certain point in that period, you moved up to the cabin.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is I needed space. I had a dog, too, that was with me, my fur baby, Thor, who was... Dude, that dog was a rock, man. He dealt with the crazy move to Philly, and he was stuck in the attic. And Thor's a very young at heart dog. If you remember, he was always very hyper, and he loved running around and eating pizza and drinking beer. He was my dog. He would love these things. Damn it! So we needed more space. So my family had this very old, modular home out in the middle of nowhere, Booney Land, and God, what was the name of the development? Oh man, I'm blanking. I should remember this.
I don't remember either because I just remember we used to go in high school. We used to go there. Yes.
Yes.
Now in
Tinkwig.
high school we went there to drink. Like
Yes.
that's where you went to drink. But you moved in, and I remember kind of the phone call. I had just started my business, and I was like, I need a different set of scenery so I can focus. And I was just like, I'm coming up. Like it's.
You didn't give me. There was a
Well,
no. Yes or no about it. It was just like I'm just coming.
I understand you were busy, but you were also like kind of That was one of the hermit periods, and I was like, you're getting out of this. Now, one of the other things that's happening at this point, maybe before this or around this time, is we start working on a book of poetry for you.
Yes.
And I don't even know what nothing at that time. Nothing qualified me as an editor for you, except that I was the one who you were sharing all of your stuff with for the last however long. And you gave me 16 poems, and I said, "Hold on, I know you've got other good stuff." Because this man used to send emails before e-newsletters were a thing. He used to send emails like, "Hey guys, look what I just wrote." And
I feel I sometimes I miss that. I do. I think that you would think with all the developments in technology we have, I just think that you got a lot more out of that. I don't know if it's just me. I don't know. It's just I sometimes wonder if, being limited by characters or by a block of space or something, we do ourselves an injustice. Because it was a letter in a sense. When you sent that email, I kind of, I don't know. I digress.
Yeah. So I saved every single one, and I sent them all back to you and went, "Now you've got enough for a book." And you went, I'm not using these.
Yeah.
So, well, they're frameworks. You start with these. And I don't know when it had to be before the cabin, because the cabin's a different part of the collaboration story. But I remember sitting on my parents' porch, running through the printed out version, which I still have, of that first book.
Yeah.
And I still remember some of the arguments are still fresh. We're not going to rehash them here, but the arguments are still fresh.
And it was developing a process. I remember the Excel spreadsheet. We color coded.
We color coded everything.
Yep.
We didn't. I think we did very well, considering we had no
experience
idea
whatsoever what we were doing. Nothing. It was,
and that's where you knew Chris from Keystone, but that's where it was like, all right, no, this is a guy who can take our help with photos and help with the cover, and so we put out a book of poetry, and then while you are hermiting in the cabin, you tease me. I'm working on a novel. Yeah, when can I see some pages? You can't see any pages.
I was very protective.
Oh my God!
I was a very tough nut to crack. I was not going to share a damn thing.
What are you doing? Nothing. You writing? Yeah. You gonna? No. You gonna share? No. So and look, when I left, it was also selfish. Like I just started a business. I had a lot of projects to do. Or a side business, but I wanted to get off on the right foot, and I was like, well, Zapata's got internet. It'd be good to get away for a little bit. I was like, I'm coming up. I think I gave you like a couple days. No, I'll be up in a couple days for a couple weeks. Whatever. It was just vague, man. It was vague all around. There's no, and so I show up with like 2 computers, not laptops. 2 computers.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember back then. I think they were around, but I think they were still prohibitively priced.
Yeah. I might have had a laptop with me, but I know I brought a computer and an additional monitor. Like I brought some stuff. Like I brought an office in my trunk. And
you set it up in the dining room table.
Dining room table became my office for 2 weeks, and
and I wanted to murder you.
You wanted to murder me.
I wanted to murder you every morning. Why don't you explain to the folks, the good folks listening to this, why I wanted to murder you?
So for anybody who's been following my blog, for most of the time I've had my blog, I do a Tour de France recap. And every year I get up for it. Every year, whether I'm working retail or a real job or I'm unemployed, I get up early in the morning and I turn on the tour and I watch it till noon. And if it's on in the background because I'm at the office or whatever, like I watch it. Well, I left to come up to see you on July 5th. So it was on and you had cable at the cabin. So I would get up at, now, mind you, this is the mental thing about the whole thing. And I mean mental, like don't try and wrap your head around this. I didn't set an alarm to wake up. I just kind of woke up at 6:30, made some coffee, and turned on the TV. And we could have been up until 2:30 the night before. Doesn't matter. And like when I say I took 2 weeks off, and I'm coding when you're at work, and then you come home and we hang out, whatever. But I, without fail, would wake up. And I broke you because before I left, in like those last few days, you were watching it with me.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I'm interested now.
I was forcibly invested in it because I was being awoken. And the funny thing is, I was working at Cove Haven at the time, the place of the famous Champagne Tower Jacuzzi. And I was a reservation agent, and I would sell people these packages. So I would get home 11:30.
11:30.
Yeah. By the time I wind down and everything, it's close to 1. So I'm going to bed, and then 4.5 hours later, I'm hearing French guys talking, and it's like, oh, God damn it, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Fuck. So, but yeah, it was fun. And, I know you had questioned if we actually had real breakfast, and I actually started thinking about this, and I know we ate a lot of eggs and bacon. I do remember that.
I remember the grill, and I said this to you very recently. We ate nothing but burgers and hot dogs, which is why I said I don't remember about breakfast. But what I do remember about the burgers and hot dogs is it was a propane grill, and I told you, I do not remember refilling the propane for the entire. Like, it is a miracle of miracles. We use that thing for like 3 meals a day.
I think it was actually some type of fracking thing where we had an actual like natural gas main somehow that was attached to the grill.
No idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Because like you would we would have breakfast, like always coffee. Like I mean, I woke up and made a pot for everybody. And when I say everybody, it's not just us. Like your brother came a couple of times. And lunch before you'd leave for work, burgers and dogs. And then maybe I have a late snack, same thing. And then you'd come home at 11 o'clock and I knew when you'd be home. So I, like a good roommate, I'd heat up the grill and there'd be food waiting, I'd try and be accommodating because I was the guest, and it was one of those things where we say all these things, and it says a lot about us being able to put up with each other. But I broke you during that because I finally got a look at the manuscript.
You did.
I don't know when it happened, but somehow I remember after a couple days, you're like, all right, take a look at this. And then you went to work, which is the worst. Like, he's just like, all right, here's what I've got, and then literally got in his car and drove away. And I've got
questions,
probably like 45 pages. It wasn't like a full manuscript. You'd only gotten a third of the, maybe a half of the way there. And I read it in like hour, maybe, even with like stopping to take some notes. And then I'm like, well, he's not gonna be home for another 6 hours. Like, I was just like, I have questions, I have comments, I have feedback. Like, what do I do? And you came back and you were like, so? And there was a fire in the fire pit, and I think we stayed up all night just passing pages back and making notes and talking about it. And it was probably the first time, even with all the poetry stuff, that you were like, oh, this is why I should share it. Because after the first little bit, you started to ask me questions as like a sounding board, because for the 4 or 5 months prior when you were working on it yourself, you didn't have that.
No,
When people need to understand is, it's not that he wasn't sharing with me. He wasn't sharing with anyone. That was a closed box.
But there's the funny thing is, and it's weird how it works. I was so secluded. It was the perfect environment to create in, because I was just in a complete, like mentally in my own head, and just geographically, I was just the perfect opportunity to work on it. And I miss it. I miss that cabin. I miss that setting. I miss the ability to unwind from everything and just have that place.
Speaking of unwinding, let's talk about the night you thought someone set the cabin on fire.
Oh God, yes.
Your side first.
My side first.
Because it's
okay.
more dramatic.
You have to understand, it's pitch black where we were because it's the country.
Yep.
It's the woods.
It's in the woods.
There's no street lamps. So you're pulling up. You only have the lights of your car
and maybe a porch light
as illumination. So I'm pulling up and I see the eerie glow of fire filling out the backyard, like the lurid glow of flames. So I'm like, holy shit, it's on fire. So I hop out of my car and I turn the corner into the backyard. And you and my brother are there,
yep.
And it looks like I don't know how. I'm like, how did you do this? And essentially, you guys had created a giant fire pit. Now, I'll let you take over, and you can explain what you did.
There was a fire pit there, and it was very much what you think of with a fire pit. And I was being a lumberjack. At some point in the afternoon, just walking into the woods with a chainsaw and cutting down like dead wood for the fire, because we used to light it, maybe not every night, but most nights. And your brother just happened to come by the cabin, and he's like, I'd love to say it was my idea or his. I don't know who to put the blame on. It equal, right? But at some point, we got it into our heads to rebuild the fire pit. Now, the fire pit is maybe a 3-foot diameter hole in the ground. Maybe.
No,
not even that.
No, it was pretty much a small indentation, but we had the cinder blocks around it. What you guys did was go down about 2-3 feet deep.
We went down. So we dug down into the dirt about 2 cinder blocks. So it was 2 cinder blocks in the ground, and then 2 cinder blocks above the ground. And it wasn't just like cinder block by cinder. No, it was like 3 by 3. Right? This was massive. Yes. You could lay people in this. So, to enjoy the fruits of our labors, your brother Brian and I lit a massive bonfire to christen this massive fire pit. So when you pull up, the flames are probably taller than the house.
No, I wouldn't say I would say they were taller than the house. I would say that the glow it was certainly,
because I remember you literally running at us.
Yeah, because I didn't know what was going on. But then I saw you and my brother, and then I saw the new and improved fire pit, and I put it together.
What's funny, too, is you went through a very, quick range of emotions. You're like, panicked, then angry, then questionable, and then well, it is a very nice fire pit.
It was a very nice fire pit.
That's where you ended up. But
I'm not sure I would have built it as big as you built it, but it's already done, so it was just like, well, it's here.
Yeah. So we that ends. I come home.
Yeah.
You get to sleep in again. And we kind of finished the first draft.
Yeah, we finished a manuscript.
And this is where being a creative and working with friends who are creative, this is where it got interesting, right? Because you're I did that. I completed it. And I was like, all right, time to do it again. And you're like, no, I have other stuff I want to write. And I was like, yeah, but we just,
You wanted to, I know.
let's get it out, man.
Yeah.
Let's do it. In fact, people who have been listening to this show since the very beginning will know that at the very end, the after credits question from Bill Sweeney on the first episode is like, what's one thing you never finished that you really want to? And I was like, it's not even mine. It's the manuscript Zapata and I did that hasn't been published yet. Now, as we sit here today talking,
Yeah.
you have started a series of short stories.
14 installments.
And you got to about 7. You got to about 5 before you'd share any of them with me. Again, just keeping it close to the vest. We've already successfully self-published a book together. And then you start, then life happens. It's really what happens. It's like a whole lot of life, right?
Happens.
Like I finally got a professional job. So I'm not working retail anymore, which changes my schedule drastically for travel. And I'm still dealing with anxiety, so I'm not coming up as much. You're coming down, but we're talking on a regular basis.
Yeah, and once things finally kind of stabilized for me and I got less awful jobs, because they still weren't good jobs by any stretch of the imagination, as you would know yourself, because I would kvet to you all the time about this stuff. It was an escape to come down to the High Valley and visit and hang out with you. And over the slow, painful course of years, I would say to you, I gotta get out of Scranton. Gotta get out of Scranton.
It's one of those things where it was like, all right, in quiet moments with myself, it's like, all right, is he going to end up here? Is he going to end up somewhere in Philly? Like I knew you were getting out of northeastern Pennsylvania. Nothing remotely close to north. Maybe eastern, but not north. And you were done. And it was like, I know you had toyed with the idea of maybe some city stuff, but again, that Philly experience kind of, you didn't want to move into the city again. It
wasn't so much I wanted to move into the city again. It was just the means to which I made those decisions. Looking back on it, it was hasty, and I didn't have the career yet where I would have a solid enough foundation to make that type of move. So thus the 5-year plan that I drove you crazy with, I would talk about all the time.
No, you don't understand, because I'm going to fast forward for a moment. Like he gets here, and we will backtrack. But he gets here and he goes, "I got a new 5-year plan." It's like, what the, God damn! Like you got to year 3 of your other 5-year plan. Now you're starting a new one. But so the other thing that happens along this period of time is I build you a website, because it's one of the things I was doing as my side project, and you start blogging. And I don't know when I start blogging in that project. You started first. I know that. I'm the one who really took to it somehow.
You got the bite bad, my friend. You just, I started and then you started and then you just took off. Like it was just like you were just gone.
But at the same time, and I still get this from you on occasion, I gave up. Like I don't write the poetry anymore. I obviously did a solo episode a while back about the last short story I wrote, but I haven't written a short story. Fiction's just not, I don't write it anymore, but I still needed that outlet. That was one thing that we always had, and I would just be like, hey, I wrote this thing, take a look at it. And it's just now a blog post, and you'd still be like, hey, I wrote this thing, here's a poem. And look, we sit here today as very different creatives than we were when we first met. You couldn't write a poem without rhyming. If it didn't rhyme, it wasn't a poem. That's not how it worked. It was that's how it worked, man. And like
very dogmatic about it.
To have seen you grow from that, and to have written through the novel. And I told you, and I hope, and I know you didn't to the extent I wanted you to, But when you finished the first draft of that novel, I wanted you to celebrate more than you did, because I told you, like, and I'll tell you again, and I will tell you every day until you publish it, it's still a massive achievement, because people don't finish even the first manuscript. They get halfway. They get halfway on 4, but they don't finish.
Yeah.
And having done that and created the end, that was... And because you brought me in, like, I felt like I was
invested.
Part of the process.
Yeah.
I was vested. I was like, it's done now. And when it was done, it was like, all right, you should celebrate. And you immediately went, I got this other stuff to do. It was like, all right, fair enough. But
I think it's one of those things where once I can get to, and it's just, as you said, adulting is such a deranged, especially given the times that we live in too, like the myriad of crazy things that a successful adult has to do. It's such a hard prospect to have that block of time and to be of a state of mind where you can do that type of work. So I want to get back to that. I really do. And again, current events kind of throw monkey wrenches into that. You know, well, if you're lucky enough to even have a job right now, trust me, they're putting the heel to you because they need to get as much work out of you as they can to make up the difference.
And what's funny about it is you've been pushing off going back to the novel since, like, for at this point as we years.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it's time. And you're like, no, it's not. And I understand how massive an undertaking this is going to be.
Well, that's the editing process is when the actual art begins. Like, people don't understand. It's one thing to write something. Like, that's the make or break of it, is when you actually sit down and you forge.
And what's funny is that you and I have that process down. We don't necessarily... Look, we aren't the nicest people. Like, I don't want anyone to think that you hand me a piece and I'm like, oh, just tweak this comma, take out this syllable, and you'll be fine. No.
You're a tyrant with a red ink pen.
No. Yeah. I am a trainer. I am yelling at you because you can do so much better. And it's just from a place of love at this point, because it's just like, you can do better. And we've already started the process of the second book of poetry, right?
Yeah.
And when we started this, it was like, here we go again. And we went through a good chunk of the poems, right? And it's just like, we know where we are.
Well, the thing of it is, the funny part of it was, like, how quickly we fell into each other's roles, and the stratagems we had from the previous work, we were already doing it. Like, there was no...
And it's so weird because, again, we didn't know what we were doing, and it just worked out. Like, I don't know if we could have planned it any better. We don't have to relearn a system. What worked before still works.
Yeah.
In fact, it's actually more streamlined now. Google Docs has
God bless Google
solved
Docs.
something, right? Because one of the things, that first book of poetry was done in Excel, and not like a shared Excel. It was just here, are you looking at the most recent Excel doc? Here, let me send it to you.
Yeah.
Hold on. What did I just download yesterday? No, that one's too old. Like, it's so much stuff. Or like, oh, I don't have the right version. Or, oh man, like, just so much solved. But it's fun creating with you. I think in our lifetime together, we've co-written maybe one poem together.
Yeah.
Like, actually sat down, like, we're going to write together. A lot of the times, we take notebooks to, like, a coffee shop, and then just talk and don't get any writing done at all. which is par for us, right? Like, we've gone out with the intention of, like, we're gonna write together today, and it's like, all right, well, 3 hours later, like, there's no words on the thing, like, 3 donuts have been consumed, like, we're on our 5th cup of coffee. It's like, all right, maybe.
But I do think that the springboard that we provide each other is very, it really helps.
And that's been since that. I mean, that's from the beginning.
Yeah.
as bad as they are in hindsight, when we think of them, we were always encouraging each other to do more.
Yes.
And it was never a competition. It was never a, I want to top you, I want to do better. It was just like, no, look what I did.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, look what I did. And it's so different. But like, so whatever it is, man, it's just interesting that we've managed to create that. And then you're still my biggest, like, you should get back into creative pursuits. And it's like, well, I like to think of the blog, while it's not creative writing, as a creative pursuit. And
it
the
is.
podcast
Yeah.
is a creative.
Yeah.
But that's not what you want. Like, there's a part of you, I know, there's a part of you that still wants, like, he's going to hand me a poem, a new poem.
I
one
would
day.
love to see it just as much as you're like, you would love to see me get cracking and get back to the novel, or just writing more, substantive long form fiction. And I would love to, dude, you have no idea. I'm really burnt out from, trying to cover as much ground as I've covered in the past couple years. And I trust me, if the world comes to a screeching end, things go south and we get a chance to have that time again, trust me, I'll use it.
I want to say, there's a couple things I want to point out. You have seen me through every major relationship I've ever had.
I have.
And I've made it a point, because of who we are together,
Yes.
that I'm like, they have to meet you.
Always.
Whether you were here or there or anywhere, is like, you have to meet Zapata. This is a non-starter. And you've been superbly nice with all of them.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not going to say who your favorites are.
I mean, come on now. Really? Really?
I don't know who's going to listen to this. Just being, nice, polite. When have I ever been nice? That's the face he gave me, ladies and gentlemen.
I know we're becoming old curmudgeons, but I will easily say that the current missus is the most suited to you.
That's fair. But
yes.
I just, that's been a thing. You helped me move back from North Carolina.
Did.
And then you helped me move from my apartment into this house. And what did I do for you? I went on vacation when you moved from Scranton to a mile and a half away. I went on vacation. Now, what we did instead, and I say we because was we met with you in Scranton, literally your last day living there. And we went out.
Which I joked hysterically about. I'm like, you would finally visit me on the last day I'm in the damn city, which is so funny.
And we went out to lunch and we went to a bookstore. And we just kind of, whatever.
Because I needed a break, because at that point I'm living out of boxes. Yep. It was pretty ridiculous.
And then, as I promised, you finished moving in on a Sunday, and we made a homemade meal and had you come over. And just kind of like, welcome, you're done.
Decompress.
It's not all done, but like, you're done enough. You're in. And it was the first time since high school that you left a home I was living in with a 5-minute trip home.
Yeah. It was just like the old days. It was back. Yeah.
It was. And then, I mean, it's not like, and look, you were understanding enough, because like, we had planned this trip to go up and see everybody well before you knew what was happening with you.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, all right. And I'm here. Like, it was like, I helped you move a couple bookcases afterwards. Like, it's not like whatever, but I feel slightly guilty that I wasn't there for that.
As you should. No, it was super. It was unfortunately due to the timing of when I accepted my new job and the time I had to find a home. It was a very short turnaround. It was a very short window. It was less than a month.
But I did see you 3 times when you were down scouting, and it was exciting to just go out to lunch or dinner whenever you. And it's been like, I understand, because my partner has been like, don't be needy with him. Like, you don't have to be over there all the time. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like people need to understand it doesn't matter. If I don't talk to you for a couple days or even a couple weeks, I know where you are now.
Yeah.
And you're closer to me, which makes it easier, and I'll just go over. But, like, I can also spend 5 days in a row with you. It's whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been a player of Magic the Gathering for years. Your brother got you into it, and when I was driving up to Scranton all the time after college before you were at the cabin, you know, we started playing, and it was great to have you there. And you're here, and we do game nights, and we do drafts, and we even have like a Pathfinder campaign going on. Like, it is just,
it's the continuation of all those shared interests over time.
It's everything that it was before that it is again, which is just, I don't like when let's see how trite I can be.
To coin a phrase that you so often do, how saccharine are you planning to be?
Well, so what I want to let you know is I don't feel old when I'm with you. It's just like we could still be in high school. I have no idea, right? Like there are times like it goes to the time in the cabin, even when you're here at my house. I own a house. When you're here in my house, it's like it's 11 o'clock. Like it could be like we have school tomorrow, and I'm still just gonna be like it's 11 o'clock. Like and like every kid of our generation, like I also feel like it's that, and we've both been responsible, and we both left when we've needed to. But it's not like we weren't thinking like that one Nerf commercial, like just one more game, you know, like just, come on, you can stay for one more movie, one more episode of whatever it is. Like we can go one more game, like it's not a problem, like whatever. And it's just that's what it is, man. Like it's what it is. This past Thanksgiving and Christmas, you were here when other family were here, but you helped me cook the turkey. We cooked a Thanksgiving turkey.
Yeah.
And didn't kill anyone.
No, we didn't murder. The meal went very well. And that's another kind of adult thing that we do now is we often now cook meals for each other. I'll bake something up sometimes and bring it over here, and you'll share with your folks. So it's nice to have those shared activities and hang out that way.
I'm telling you right now, 15-year-old me and 16-year-old you do not share recipes.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's the funny thing. As adults, we can be a little less like, I don't know, there's a little less bravado at this point. It's like, and the guys pick on me. I'll tell them that I'm working on something in the kitchen. And like, oh, are you wearing high heels in the kitchen too? Like, it's like, dude, no, I'm an adult and I like to cook things for myself and bake things for myself.
But that's one of the things that sets us apart, because I'm on the fringe of that group too, and you and I, it's a little different.
Yeah, everyone changed. Like everyone's kind of matured differently, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that people kind of diversify in how they want to, evolve, like what they want to do and their interest, and again, their quirks, their idiosyncrasies, which are more grating than others. By far, but I don't mind getting grief from the guys. I think it's funny. I grieve them too on some of the more loony things that they do. So I think that's the wonderful thing about a friendship is that you got the ability to do that. You can drive each other crazy sometimes, and you don't end up killing each other, which is a good thing.
So, all of this said, right? Why are we still friends?
Why are we still friends? We're masochists, maybe? I don't know. We're still friends because as much as we've, evolved over time and, gotten, changed over time, we still have that core set of interests, that shared history. I mean, what are we almost up to? 30? Like what? Let's just do the math. Like what was it? Like 1996, 97,
96
or 97. So how many years is that now? Like it's 2020. So that's 24 years, man. that's no small amount of time. So when you know someone that long and they're such a part of your life, and their family is such a part of your life. I mean, I talk to your folks, quite a bit. I love your mom and dad. Like, they treat me like family, and my folks love you.
Dude,
every
time I call, it's speakerphone, everybody, anybody. It doesn't matter. It's your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, whoever's in the house is like, hey, how you doing? What's like, it's an event when I call the house.
You should, at some point when I'm down there, also stop by. I know you don't get around as much anymore, but they would treat you like family. They would,
and they are family.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I took. There's been a couple times you weren't around, and I'd take a girl and be like, "This is my girlfriend," and they're like, "Who are the like?" No, they're my parents. Like, there's a pot of parents, but they're my parents too. Like, you have to meet them. You can't not meet them because they've met everybody too, whether you were around or not.
Yeah.
It's been one of the we are it's family. Like,
exactly. That's the term. Yep.
It's been very weird having you back too, because it is just like old times, but it's not like old times. Like, old times, I understand what those are. Old times don't involve mortgages. Like, old times don't involve, do I have to go grocery shopping for like, we used to go shopping, sure, but like, we're going to go get food for the party, like
or car issues or loan issues, or like all the ridiculous complexities that come with adulthood, where you're just, they're not even a thought. And when you're 18, it's like, I would just love me now to be put in a room with me then. I think me then would be just traumatized. It would be hysterical.
I feel like I'm very, like, I don't, but like, when I'm sitting with you, it doesn't feel like anything.
No. Yeah.
It's just no time is nothing.
I have a glorious ally during all this insanity and the enormous insanities of adulthood. It's like, yes, it was one of the reasons why I moved here. It was just like, dude, I have my best friends up here, and I have this exciting new job, and I have a support system, and he has an awesome girlfriend who I'm friends with too. So even better, it's good stuff, man.
It's been a wild ride, because you still push me.
Yeah.
And I know that to some people on the outside, like, I push you harder because there's more tangible results there. Like, we're working on the second book. We put out the first one, but like, your cheerleading just happens differently, and people don't see like the years of when are you gonna, like, I think I'm over like a milestone, right? 500 posts, 600 posts, whatever it is for the blog. And it's never been good enough for you. Like, when am I going to see an original poem again? Like, when are you going to write another short story? Like, and
I think you may have dabbled with some songwriting. I mean, I don't know if you've dabbled a bit.
You were one of the few people that ever heard me sing an original song.
Yeah. So,
but you've been a big, like, get back out there, do more. You're not doing enough creative. And all right.
All things in time. It's one of those things, and I'm more guilty of it than you are, man. I mean, you at least you're remotely, well, you right now are scratching that creative itch. Like, you're doing it. My hat's off to you, brother. I wish I could as much as you are right now. It's tough.
I have the support system when I'm weak. I mean, the blog, I can't remember. I'm on an Iron Man streak, and I know it's just a weekly blog, but it's not the only thing I've got, and it's just kind of like, I don't know when I last missed a Thursday. Like, I just don't. I know
Yeah.
there were a couple where I was like really excited for it, so I put it out on Wednesday. But like otherwise, like I've been like clockwork, and I go back. It's still weird that for people like you who know me, it's not enough. Like, I get to scratch that itch, but you're like, but are you though?
Wouldn't you rather be writing a short story or a poem?
You're one of the few people, and I have written a short story in the last few years, but it's just one. But you're one of those few people that have seen like the actual poetry and the other unfinished works. Because we're close enough that I can share with you the unfinished thing. And this series of episodes, you're number one. Like, I told you about this before I started the actual show.
Yeah.
I was like, this is going to be a thing we're going to do.
You were very clear in stating that you wanted to do a series of your old friends. You wanted to get them on, talk. And I think it's cool. I think that it's a very underappreciated thing. I think that a lot of people scoff it, and, there's a little bit of goofy mockery, bromance and all this nonsense that goes on nowadays. But to have, a brother, someone that you can rely on and someone who's going to have your ear. And again, how many times was I on your porch over the course of how many years saying, one day, you remember that. So,
yeah. I mean, but that one day was a better job.
Yeah.
And that one day was coming down here or getting around here. And that one day was putting out a book, which we did.
Yeah.
And now it's the next book. And I help when I can, and with whatever I've got. And you should blog more, but that ship has probably sailed.
Yeah, I don't think blogging, I mean, the only way I foresee that happening would be a change in job title. If right now the current job title I have within the company, I'm really happy with the company I work for, by the way. I don't want people to think like, but it's just it's very intense. There's a lot of time sensitive stuff you have to work on. It's insurance stuff. It's and especially the current climate.
Well, and I've been with you as you've gotten certification after certification after certification, and again, it's you go hermit for a couple weeks to study, and then you come out and we make you a dinner, and it's just, hey, I understand. I think that you and I have a better communication system now, and I'm not talking like, oh, he's just a few blocks that way. I can just go over, and if the car's there, I know I can, barge in because we've got keys.
Yeah.
But it's also like I can talk to you now in a way that I think we were at a loss for words. I think sometimes, and we never came to blows, and we never got in really arguments or fights, but I think there were times when it was like, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. And what the I don't or like why are you so upset? What is going on? And it's like we've gotten to a point now where we're never going to ask why. Like, oh, I know why you're upset. You know what I mean? Or like whatever it is, like, oh, I know that tone.
Yeah, I know where this is going. I know why he's being such a grouch, and
but that was the weird part about the second book of poetry. It's just kind of like you need to wait, what? I know where this is going. I've heard this before. Like, and it's great because we've got it down.
Yeah.
And I think the good news for us is it's applicable to everything. Whether it's the next book of poetry, the novel, fucking
just the friendship in general. Just again, it's knowing the person's tics and accepting the tics. And that's a big part of it. Like, I can be irritating as all. I know it. I know I am. And I a-hole tendencies. I've joked with my friends. I have certain a-hole tendencies sometimes. So, and I apologize for them when I can, and I try to limit them,
Well, I think my anxiety, which you were one of the 2 or 3 people that I told everything to. Like, I'm sure you listened to that anxiety episode and went, I know all of this. Like, none of this is new to you.
I know. Actually, there was a lot I learned about that episode. I didn't know that, and I even talked to you about it afterwards. And like, during those times, did you call me? Because just so everyone knows, I hate the phone. Like,
Absolutely, dude. No. Yeah, no. He's gotten better, but
not by much. I hate, because my previous jobs, I was on the phone all the time. So I have a very deep phone aversion. I hate being on the damn phone. So when you were discussing that, I felt so guilty. I felt so bad. And he was like, "No, don't worry about it. I don't rely on you for that." I'm like, "Oh," I felt kind of bad for a second. Then like, okay, that's okay though. That's
like I know, like
yeah.
you were in the list of people I called. You were never the first, because I knew, like, even to establish going up to the cabin was like me calling him 5 times. I don't leave voicemails for you. I mean, I do, and they're funny, and they're not, but I know I'm going to call back in an hour because I want to get you. Hey, are you coming over this week? Or, hey, I'm coming up to the cabin, or like whatever it is. Like, look, we've been at this for quite a while. Like, it's
almost 25 years,
It's what it is, man. I mean, I'll try and answer it. Like, why are we still friends? Like, yeah, I mean, you could say it's idiosyncrasies and this, that, and the other thing, and you could say it's shared experiences. But like, I love you. Like, it's just like that happened, and I'm not going to say it happened recently. Like, I loved you then. Like, at a certain point, probably somewhere either just like towards the end of college for us, or just after, it was like, nope, that's it. Like, I've got him. He's my friend for life. Like, that's it. Yeah. That's it. Like, one of the times, because I spent a summer living in North Carolina, and while you helped me move back from that, like, we went to Foamhenge, man, which doesn't exist anymore.
So sad, yeah.
But there, like, somewhere in, I think it was Virginia, somewhere in the rolling hills of Virginia, existed a
foam
replica of Stonehenge.
Yeah,
and
it was epic.
We stopped and we walked around and we joked, and there was a statue of Merlin.
I think a dragon too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe could be fuzzy.
Dude, it was amazing. But the point was, like, we were there. That was the thing we did.
Yeah.
Right. It goes on the list of everything else we've done. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's having a brother. It's like that's the awesome thing about it.
Well, I guess, but this is the point where we say this. If it hasn't become apparent yet, I have no siblings. So when you say, like, having a brother, you have a brother. You understand what that means.
I do.
I had to get it from you and from a few others, and all of you put up with my self-centered bullshit. And it's like, no, this is how we do this. It's like, no, we don't.
Well, like I said, even on those first couple meetings, like, you always had that moxie to you. You always, you didn't let age or, differences bother you. You were always very let's just do this. So,
Wikipedia defines friendship as a relationship of mutual affection between people. My trusty Funkin' Wagnalls defines it as a mutual regard cherished by kindred minds. Both are accurate, and while the second may be more to my liking, and not just because it's much more poetic, friendship, while it can be defined by definition, is mainly defined by experience. Whether you are still, as I am, friends with someone from high school or college, or someone from long ago or more recently, you don't need a definition of who your friends are. You just know. But how do you know? That's the whole reason for this 4-episode series. Perhaps there will be some commonality between my 4 closest friends, but perhaps I'm the only common theme. No matter the theme, the consistencies, or the aberrations, one thing remains true. These are my friends by any definition. Thanks for listening to the Palmer Files, episode 25. As a reminder, all links are available in the show notes, and now for the official business. The Palmer Files releases every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. If you're still listening, I encourage you to join the discussion. You can tweet me at Agent Palmer and the show at The Palmer Files. You can see all of my writings and rantings on agentpalmer.com, and all links will be available in the show notes. Email can be sent to the show at thepalmerfiles@gmail.com if you have any feedback on this series or any previous episode, or if there's a topic or guest you'd like me to consider. You can also hear more of me in the meantime on Our Liner Notes, a musical conversation podcast with host Chris Meyer, and my other gig as co-host of the Podcast Digest with Dan Lizette. All right, Jason. Zapata. I'm trying to be formal, but not be formal. Do you have one final question for me?
I do. And I think people have a laugh out of this, no less. How awful were we when we hopped out of the Black LeBaron after we were struck from behind and started cheering that there was no damage when poor Stacy, who was behind us, was sobbing?
Okay, so clarification, right? It's high school. You know, we didn't know each other for that long. We're probably in the first year of even knowing each other. And it's a early dismissal for Thanksgiving break. And we're he's taking me home, we're driving down, and you had this fucking amazing LeBaron. Like, that thing was made of steel. It was an Iron Man, a Superman, and a Batman all in one. It survived somehow, right? And there was a car in front of us. Kids are leaving school. Somebody walked out in front. Somebody stopped short. Somebody else stopped short. We stop, and the person behind us,
not
Stacy,
so lucky,
doesn't stop and right into the back, rear ends.
And
us.
I think someone hit her too. I think there was at least three other.
There's a chain reaction behind us, and we both look at each other. We both get out. We walk around to the back. There's no damage to the LeBaron. None. Perfectly fine. And we look in the car behind us. Someone's kind of crying. Some tears are starting to form.
Oh no, there was kind of crying. There was sobbing.
Trying to be nice. And we just got right back in and left. And I remember hearing somebody say, you should stay.
Yeah,
and we were gone.
It was terrible. I mean, we were not supposed to do that. I don't think it's even occurred to me. I was so jubilant and happy that my car wasn't damaged that it didn't even occur to me. I was like, oh, we looked at on this one. We just took off through. And yeah, there was at least 3 other cars behind us that were smashed up. And I forget her last name. I know it was Stacy, and I felt, looking back, I felt bad because she was so upset. I should have checked on her and, do the things I would do now. It's just at the time it didn't even occur to me. I was just so happy.
We were young.
We were?
And yet we were still willing to get in trouble.
I'm hoping we still are.
I mean, the joke has always been, if I ever need to bury a body.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not a joke. And you've helped me move, which has got to be worse than burying a body. So, right?
Yeah, either or, You know, if it's someone I mutually hate, then it's not really,
not really
a chore.
that bad.
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
I'm happy to, go 6 feet deep for you.
Fair enough.
Yeah.